Welcome to the OSS,
where we empower students in the classroom
toward commencement
and for their calling.
We offer tons of resources for all students. Upstairs, we have a study space, the tutoring center, and the writing center.
And downstairs, we have disability services and the Veteran Resource Center. We also house 2 multidisciplinary honor societies, Alpha Chi for on-campus students and Alpha Sigma Lambda for online. Come visit us in Lancer Arms.
Next to the Event Center.
See you soon.
The mission of the University Writing Center at California Baptist University is to cultivate purpose-driven writers, communicators, and influencers. In an increasingly digital and multimedia culture, communicating clearly and persuasively is one of the most essential skills to have in any industry or profession. Many of the most successful men and women have been people of action, but also people of words, who learn to tell their stories and draw others in to share in their successes. For 2,500 years, influential thinkers, makers, and leaders were trained in the study of rhetoric, which provided powerful tools to establish credibility, develop arguments, and move audiences. Using these principles of rhetoric, the University Writing Center empowers students to be successful in the classroom, toward commencement, and for their calling. As part of its purpose to cultivate purpose-driven writers, the Writing Center organizes an annual Distinguished Public Lecture and Award to honor industry professionals who exemplify this mission. Beginning in 2021, Nancy Duarte, CEO of one of the leading communication firms in Silicon Valley, taught us how to communicate data through timeless storytelling techniques to help executive leaders make critical decisions and inspire action. In 2022, the hip-hop and spoken word artist Propaganda used the science fiction concept of terraforming other planets as a metaphor for turning hostile environments into hospitable spaces that reflect a more biblically just society. In 2023, Eric Motley, Deputy Director of the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., shared his memoir about his journey from Madison Park, Alabama to the White House, showing us how remembering our past communities can sustain us with hope to overcome present and future obstacles. In 2024, Ralph Winter, award-nominated film producer and head of creative for the Sphere Las Vegas, showed us how the art of cinema helps us ask the deepest questions of our desires and point us toward eternal truths. And tonight, we welcome Ron Ellis, president of CBU, who will share with us what he has learned over the last 30 years in leadership about purpose-driven writing, communication, and influence, and what he hopes for CBU students when they have their own seat at the table. Here at the University Writing Center, we believe in cultivating the art of writing in students from all disciplines. We hope that tonight, you too will be inspired to become writers who communicate clearly and persuasively to live your purpose.
Well, good evening. I'm Dr. Josh Fullman. I'm director of the University Writing Center here at CBU, and we just want to welcome you for being here at the 2025 Distinguished Public Lecture and Award. It's a delight, truly, to have you here with us today. The mission of the University Writing Center is to cultivate purpose-driven writers, communicators, and influencers. Everyone wants to have an expanded influence, to have a great reach, to gather as many people as possible to help them join in and accomplish their goal. Everyone wants to see change in their neighborhoods, in their churches, in their schools. Everyone wants to change the world in ways large and small. Whether you're a faculty creating a lesson plan, a college student composing an essay, a proposal, or presentation, or a university president casting vision for a university committed to the Great Commission and preparing students to live their purpose, we all have the ability to bring about change through our words. Thoughtful writing, clear communication will be the thing that significantly expands your influence. And the Writing Center, it exists to help students connect words to action and action to purpose. Our theme this year is a seat at the table. which is a phrase that shows up a couple of times in Dr. Ellis's book. In We Are Ready, Dr. Ellis tells his story, which is, of course, the story of California Baptist University. Under his leadership, CBU has expanded from a small liberal arts college in 1994 to a university boasting 190 academic programs today. There were just over 800 students who were enrolled in 1994 when he first arrived on campus, to nearly 12,000 students in 2025. We are witnessing the historic flourishing of the fruit that he and others helped plant 30 years ago. More and more students are being offered a seat at the table in fields like entertainment, engineering, architecture, the sciences, and church ministry. More and more students get a say in national and international industries. More and more students now have a voice in our culture. CBU is strategically positioned to bring people into our university and to send them out into all the world. And tonight, we're blessed to hear from Dr. Ellis about his life, his experiences, and his vision for CBU faculty, staff, and students. But before we do, we need to acknowledge the many, many contributions of those who have helped us put this event together. We want to thank our friends in Conferences and Events for helping to design and set up our space this evening. Thank you to Christine Farlow, Senior Director of Communications and Public Relations, for helping us get the word out to staff, students, and faculty. We want to thank Lisa Blair for her work in the Career Center, for connecting us with CBU alum and to showcase how they have earned a seat at the table. In the Office of Student Success, our deans, Steve Nelson, Tae Sung, and Michael Otsadchuk, and Emily Golden, for their leadership, their vision, and their operational direction. And for our many student workers in the Office of Student Success, writing, tutoring, peer mentoring, for the hospitality they have showed all of you tonight in helping put this event together, including and especially Ben Braxmeyer, who helped curate the video that you saw just a few moments ago. We want to give a special thanks to Angela Molesky, Vice President of Marketing, for promoting and for facilitating much of what you see here this evening. In the Office of Provost, thank you to Drs. Wayne Fletcher and Claudia Valdez, and to Janie Armentrout, our Assistant to the President. Finally, we wish to express our gratitude to our Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Chuck Sands, for partnering with us and making tonight a success. Now, in just a few moments, Dr. Sands will come up to introduce our distinguished guest. After his remarks, President Ellis will give his address, and then afterwards, Dr. Sands will moderate a conversation with President Ellis and the co-author of his book, Dr. Mark Wyatt. But first, before we do that, let's begin with a brief video celebrating Dr. Ellis's 30 years here at CBU.
The era of Great Commission leadership at California Baptist University began when Dr. Ronald L. Ellis became the institution's 5th president on November 1st, 1994. Since then, both the university and its visionary leader have gained a reputation for excellence and achieved a remarkable record of success. As a young boy during the 1960s, influenced by his parents' involvement in pioneer mission in Las Vegas, Ellis internalized the Great Commission as a central part of his life. It became an enduring mission that continues to shape a life of global vision and service. In graduate school, Ellis felt a distinct calling to turn around a struggling Baptist college. He spent years pondering how the Great Commission applies to a college, pursuing the answer during his doctoral program at Texas A&M University. He examined factors that were present on campuses that achieved significant growth and those present that created challenges for others. In the process, Ellis identified the conditions needed to succeed. During his inaugural address, Ellis shared his vision, a dream that seemed just that to many in the crowd. But in the years that followed, his words have proven to be more than visionary. They were a plan, and the success that followed has been anything but accidental.
Cal Baptist will seek to become the college of first choice for California Southern Baptist, but that will not be enough. Cal Baptist will continue to receive those who come, but that will still not be enough. Cal Baptist must reach out, seek out, and go to all who may benefit from our offerings.
Dr. Ellis continues to inspire with unwavering enthusiasm, a fervor for innovation and pioneering, and a steadfast commitment to student growth. Guided by his faith in the Great Commission, his journey is a testament to living with purpose. For over 3 decades, President Ellis has adeptly navigated the ever-changing landscape of higher education. His leadership has earned him numerous accolades, recognizing him as an influential figure in higher education, including recognition by the Raincross Group, Riverside Sport Hall of Fame, national recognition by the Boy Scouts of America, and many more. Under his stewardship, the university consistently achieved top-tier rankings in academics and student experience. In 2023, the Wall Street Journal ranked CBU #1 for career preparedness and #2 for best student experience. CBU also earned a place in the top 30 for best regional university in the West, according to U.S. News & World Report. Since taking office, Dr. Ellis has overseen a remarkable growth in enrollment, increasing from 808 students in 1994 to an astounding 11,931 students in the fall of 2024. During the same period, the university's operating budget surged from $11.3 million to $390 million. CBU's campus infrastructure has also undergone remarkable transformations. In 1994, the main campus footprint was 59 acres. Today, CBU's total property holdings span 211 acres, with over 2.7 million square feet under roof, boasting state-of-the-art facilities, cutting-edge technology, a thriving learning environment, and a world-class 5,050-seat arena. Ellis also encouraged the growth of athletics at CBU. Since 1999, 45 Lancer teams have earned the title of national champions, with 169 individuals achieving the title on their own. In its present state, CBU Athletics sponsors 20 NCAA Division I programs, along with a nationally recognized stunt program. Most importantly, Dr. Ellis set a foundational philosophy to drive institutional sustainability from the inside out. CBU's graduates are not only well prepared for successful careers, but also for community service locally and globally, excelling in fields such as healthcare, science, technology, business, education, engineering, ministry, and more. In an industry where the average college president's tenure is less than 6 years, Dr. Ellis's consistency, stability, and adaptability have proven paramount to his long-standing success, fueling the university's continuous institutional momentum. California Baptist University, under President Ellis's visionary leadership, has achieved extraordinary milestones and is poised for ongoing success and a prosperous future.
So good afternoon. It really is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Ellis. Some of what I'm going to read you've already heard in the video, but it's worth repeating many of these milestones that are so important to the legacy that he is creating. Ronald Ellis became the 5th president of California Baptist University on November 1, 1994. Since then, the institution has experienced sweeping changes in almost every facet of university life, from expanding academic programs to a very successful athletics program. Enrollment at CBU has grown by 1,377% during the Ellis presidency, from 808 in the fall of 1994 to 11,931 in the fall of 2024. During his tenure, the university's operating budget has increased from $11.3 million to $397 million in fiscal year 25. The NCAA Division I Board of Directors in 2022 granted CBU active status as a Division I institution, providing the Lancer athletic teams immediate eligibility for postseason play. Since then, CBU teams scored major accomplishments, including men's and women's soccer, women's basketball, men's and women's cross country, and swim and dive, all competing in NCAA tournaments. Meanwhile, men's water polo competed in the West Coast Conference Tournament Championship. Women's golf had a WAC tournament champion, Stunt earned its 4th national championship, cheer won the Grand National Championship, and track brought home a silver at the national championships. And just last week, CBU announced that we will be joining the Big West Conference in July 2026. New construction, renovation of existing facilities, and property acquisitions have dramatically transformed CBU's beautiful Southern California campus. The university has been the recipient of numerous beautification awards from the Keep Riverside Clean and Beautiful program. For the 19th consecutive year, U.S. News & World Report named CBU one of America's best colleges for 2025. And as you just heard in the video also, CBU was also recognized by the Wall Street Journal as number 5 in the country for the student experience. Under the leadership of President Ellis, CBU has developed into a premier, comprehensive Christian university comprising 10 colleges and professional schools, offering more than 175 majors and minors, as well as 41 graduate programs and 10 doctoral programs. Growth in the academic space coincides with the expansion elsewhere on campus. Within just the last 6 years, CBU has launched 41 new academic programs aimed at continually meeting the needs of communities and helping students live their purpose. Since President Ellis's tenure began in 1994, CBU has awarded more than 43,000 academic degrees, which represents 94% of all CBU degrees awarded in the institution's history. President Ellis received a bachelor's degree from Houston Baptist University in 1977 and a master's degree in educational administration from Baylor University in 1981. In 1987, he completed a PhD in higher education administration from Texas A&M University. President Ellis and his wife, Jane Dowden Ellis, are active members of Magnolia Church in Riverside, where he has served as chair of the Board of Trustees. They have 2 sons and 14 grandchildren. Would you join me in welcoming Dr. Ellis to the stage? Thank you.
Wow, it's great to look out here and see each one of you in attendance at this event. Thank you for attending. It's humbling and honoring to stand before you and share my experiences and observations. 31 years ago, at this time, I had recently been notified of the announced retirement of the president of California Baptist College, and that the Board of Trustees was conducting a search for the next president. The person calling me to share this information was Alan Wayne, a retired public school educator from Northern California who had previously served on the board at CBC. We became friends when I met he and his wife, Dottie, at a church potluck in Campbellsville, Kentucky, where I and my young family had recently moved so that I could serve as executive vice president at then Campbellsville College. We struck up a friendship, and 5 years later, he called to tell me about the opening at CBC and asked for permission to submit my name. I agreed. After conducting some 150 hours of research, preparing for the series of interviews, I felt strongly that this opportunity could be the place to build a university committed to the Great Commission. The We Are Ready book tells of my preparation and purposeful leadership to implement that vision, and God has blessed here abundantly. One of the legacy goals I envisioned was to prepare students to live their purpose and be prepared to earn a place at the table where important decisions are made. Woody Allen famously observed that 80% of success in life is just showing up. While there is certainly more to success than showing up, he is not wrong that if one is not present, then they will likely limit or eliminate the possibility for success. Another apt saying is that If you are not present for the lunch, you are lunch. Many of us have experienced being on the short end of the stick, in large part because we had no representation at the table when the decision was made about who pays and who receives, who benefits and who does not. Being prepared to provide an effective voice when decisions are made can mean that a very small change can have a multiplied effect on numerous people. For instance, an example I have used since my early days at CBC has to do with our graduates having earned a seat at the table where decisions are made in Washington, D.C., or Europe, or Beijing, China, or Hollywood. And let me just take an aside. If you haven't taken time to go around and read these posters, please do so. It'll put a lump in your throat. These are real CBU students who have earned, because of their education here and their passion for life and their hard work and dedication, a seat at the table. I can only dream what you and other CBU graduates, the impact you will have globally 40 years from now. And that is a big part of my motivation and the vision when I came. So to state again, my early days at CBU I had a vision of our graduates having earned a seat at the table where decisions are made in Washington, D.C., or in Europe or Beijing or China, or even in Hollywood. Imagine years from now, a CBU graduate has worked their way up in a major movie studio, and $100 million has been budgeted on a hoped-for blockbuster film. As the powers that be sit around the table, one suggests that a few gratuitous scenes be added that would likely result in an R rating. In my hypothetical story, our graduate speaks the language of a for-profit company which has a primary goal to maximize shareholder value and challenges the idea by asking, why would we want to do that and receive an R rating, which will limit the audience and thus limit revenues? Especially knowing, and I verified this the other night, that the top 18 worldwide grossing movies of all time have less than an R rating. Think about that. Yes, a seat at the table for expertly prepared CBU graduates who have a strong Christian moral compass, understand how to navigate the waters, and speak the language that is spoken in these environs while serving God and mankind. Amen. That's the dream. Earning a seat at the table often comes from a decades-long preparation, which should be focused yet flexible. My own journey has been an earnest seeking to prepare myself to serve in leadership positions, but finding the specific position and even which field it would be in, not to mention the geographic area, was often filled with many more doors closing than doors opening. Understanding and accepting that this is a natural progression and that these difficult times helps develop needed skill sets that are hard to come by except by learning to accept rejection and persevering even when so many things seem to be obstacles. Often through trial and error, one develops the ability to discern the difference between obstacles that one must overcome and doors that are closed. One leads to achievement and sustaining power. You're an overcomer. You face it and you solve it. While the other can lead to wasted time and effort if not abandoned in a timely manner. When that door closes and you recognize it, stop. It's like the futurist, Carol Childers, wrote a book 30, 40 years ago. Maybe you heard me tell about this. It has the best title ever. When the horse is dead, dismount. How many people do we see that are sitting on a dead horse and their only solution is to beat it harder, and keep doing what they're doing? Dismount and move on. So when those doors are closed, recognize it, praise the Lord, and go knock the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And students, if you take any lesson from here, persevere, keep your eyes focused on Jesus, and keep working hard, and good things will happen. And I will tell you this, you've also heard too, it's often darkest before the sun comes up. A lot of times there seems to be a coupling, in my experience and others I observe, where you get something really bad news. And, what do you do with that? Well, you know what? Lay down. Take a nap. Go to sleep if you can. Get up. And invariably, good news comes that you could not have foreseen, because you're back in the game and you're just grinding it out. It may take a while, but you persevere and you persevere and you persevere. Now I'm going to change gears and talk a little bit about We Are Ready, a President's Preparation and Purpose. After a decade or so at CBU, I would occasionally have someone suggest to me that I should write a book about the significant growth at CBU, which was a higher education outlier. I usually thanked them, asked for their thoughts, and gave considerable time to weighing the idea and trying to determine the nature of such a book. Would it be a how-to book? Would it be a book on leadership? Would it be a historical snapshot of this specific time in the life of the institution? However, I had a strong feeling that whichever route I was going to take, the timing was not right at that time. It was just too soon. I was deep in the midst of this project to build a university committed to the Great Commission, and any book would seem to be premature and outdated as soon as it was published. But the idea remained. Fast forward to my approaching 30th anniversary as president of CBC/CBU on November 1, 2024. And it seemed like the time was ripe. Also, we had just endured the slowdown of the pandemic, and I had had more time to reflect. With about 18 months before the 30th anniversary, I felt it's time to begin. The Board of Trustees graciously approved the project, and I enlisted Mark Wyatt, recently retired Vice President for Marketing and Communication at CBU, and then on a consulting contract with the President to assist with projects. That's like whatever, else it is. The format would provide the President's eyewitness account of this transformative 30-year period in the history of California Baptist University. Furthermore, since the Great Commission is such an important part of the vision, it would document the significance of this verse in my life and the resulting preparation, I purposefully sought from an early age to be prepared for a leadership position in service of the Great Commission, wherever that led and whatever field or geographic area it entailed. Over the last 30 plus years, my life and the history of CBU have been significantly bound together, and I have been able to live my life's dream. But one does not do such a massive work alone. I knew that the best way for me to achieve my purpose was to help provide the conditions for success for other talented and passionate can-do Christians to bring to bear their God-given giftedness and to give them platforms to live their purpose to the highest level and construct building blocks that fit together with other building blocks and thereby build a university committed to the Great Commission where talented faculty and staff could serve God by serving students who were preparing to do likewise. In essence, the employees live our purpose by helping our students live their purpose. It's a beautiful thing. Each of us gathered here has been chosen for this time and this place and gifted specifically by God to live our unique purpose. In a nutshell, our life's goal is to seek God's will, find God's will, and spend the rest of our lives doing God's will. May the Lord continue to bless. Do I need Boo here?
Thank you, Dr. Ellis, for sharing your story with us. At this time, the University Writing Center would like to present the 2025 Distinguished Public Lecture Award to Ron Ellis for cultivating student-driven writing, communication, and influence. Thank you, Dr. Ellis.
Thank you for the talk, the inspiration, and the opportunity to have a conversation with both of you this afternoon. So Dr. Ellis, I'm going to start with you. At the beginning of this particular school year, you actually shared with faculty a dream for CBU students to have a seat at the table. What does it mean to you personally for CBU students to have a seat at the table?
Well, just like these posters, you know, it just gives you a warm feeling inside to see that they've been prepared here by our faculty and the living experience here. And now they're taking those lessons and that education, and they're going out into the world and they're moving to the top. And they're really in a position to have that seat at the table. That's very gratifying and satisfying. I'd say, you know, I've had opportunity to travel globally quite a bit. Mark and I have seen much of the world together. And more and more, when I go places, I run into a CBU graduate. And you can't drive around here and not see. You drive 4 miles in Riverside, you're going to see somebody with a CBU thing around their license plate or sticker or something. And that just wasn't the situation. And then I'll also say it's not unusual for me to go to get some sort of medical treatment, and it's as likely as not that either the person who is helping me either teaches here or is a student and is in training, or maybe even, especially the nurses. In 2020, I had double bypass surgery. 3 of my nurses in recovery were CBU nursing graduates, and they were all excellent. So seeing that happen is just wonderful.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that. So Dr. Wyatt, as a former VP for Marketing and Communications for 18 years, you were not only Dr. Ellis's main speechwriter, but also the co-author for this particular book. So a couple questions for you. First, can you tell us about the writing process that worked for the two of you?
Yes, Dr. Ellis spoke about the timing of the book, and in fact, we had talked about it after those 10 years, because by then he had asked me to join the team here at CBU, and we talked off and on for many years about that process. And when the time came and he invited me to work with him on this book, we settled into a system whereby we would meet periodically, discuss topics, ideas. We formulated what the book would contain and how it would progress, beginning first as a personal memoir and life story of Ronald Ellis, and then the second half of the book really focusing on the Ellis years at California Baptist University. So it was during that time that we would meet together, we would talk, I would ask questions, we would remember experiences that we both had during that administration as well. And then I began to put his words into form on paper. Then we would massage them together, and then we would do it again. And eventually, knowing that we had a deadline, we quit. And this is the result. And it doesn't contain every story of every success or every setback. And there have been many of both that are too numerous to include in the first volume. Will there be another volume? I don't know. Will there be another volume? The idea is to get this narrative. A lot of things were left on the cutting room floor, things we discussed over the period of the writing of the book. But in order for this narrative to work, some great successes and wonderful achievements were not discussed and dealt with in the book. But they're in our hearts and in our minds, and they're in our community and in our world through the influence of the students and faculty members and staff who've had a hand in building this university committed to the Great Commission.
Yeah, that's great. So we have a lot of students here today. I'm wondering if you can speak to them maybe a little more directly about the importance of communicating and writing effectively in order to have a seat at the table.
Yeah, that is a very critical skill set, to have both verbal and writing skills, because they're necessary to convey ideas. And we live in a world of ideas, competing ideas, many of them very bad ideas. And in order to effectively stamp those out and represent the positive, strong, Christ-valued ideas that we embrace, it's important to have good, strong writing and verbal skills. Those skills allow you to convey ideas effectively, concisely, and in an organized fashion. Because without that kind of communication skill, you're not going to be able to write an effective email or make an effective presentation or do anything personally or professionally that is going to raise you above the crowd. So that kind of effective communication is going to eliminate anything that is not convincing or not persuasive, and it's going to eliminate any opportunity for misunderstanding by using the right choice of words and the right choice of sentence structures to avoid misunderstanding altogether. When you have that kind of written skill and verbal skill, then you have a much better chance of being persuasive whether you already have a seat at the table or you're preparing to get that seat at the table.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for that. So, Dr. Ellis, we've read the book, and you tell a lot of stories. You also have some important concepts that come through. And so for me, one of the concepts that has resonated ever since I met you was this idea of having your head in the clouds, but your feet on the ground at the same time. So can you just talk a little bit about that and elaborate?
Right. One of the things I talk about in the book is something I call healthy tension. You know, a lot of people don't like tension at all, but there has to be tension. If you think about, something on a flywheel, if there's no tension, it's too loose. And if it's too tight, it snaps. But so you want to get that thing just right, and then it has optimum. And I look at the same thing when you have a vision for something that you want to accomplish. There's really two components to it that are equally important. One, you have to have a very well thought out, clear vision of what it is you want to do. I call that head in the clouds. We're looking up to the Lord, we're seeing things, we're looking way over the horizon, and we have this vision to do something, build something, start something, grow something, create, play, whatever, right? And there's this vision for it. But if we never put our feet on the ground, it never happens. And we kind of know people, most of us, who like to talk a good game, but they never seem to finish. In fact, they never seem to start. They're just off to the next vision. So coming up with something that you can envision, your head in the clouds, and then your feet on the ground. And the way I articulate that at CBU, we're building a university committed to the Great Commission. That's my head in the clouds. That's the vision. That's what I'm looking for, trying to get over there too. Well, what is the feet on the ground? It's enrollment. We're an enrollment-driven institution. That's what puts the fuel in the tanks. And it's also the metric that tells us, are we tapping a market? Are we there? Does anybody value what we're doing? When you hear Chuck say earlier that we've done, 41 new programs
Since 2019. Yeah.
well, we're putting those out there, and we are going to have a brutal accountability. Students will either say, yes, I want that program at that price and at that time and at this thing, or they will say no. Now, then we need to look at it and adjust and see, and if we can't get it right, if we don't have the product right, if we don't have the process right, or we don't have the people right, or all three or two of three, then we probably need to start over or kill it, and do it different. But you have to get in that arena and be out there. But head in the clouds, that's your vision. Feet on the ground. If you over-focus on the vision, it just is a dream and it's got nothing. If you focus too much on feet on the ground, you might have certain metric success like enrollment, but you forgot why you were doing it. So that's where that tension comes in. And we have had a number of people question and actually compliment us that we're an evangelical institution that has had tremendous growth, and at the same time, we have maintained our conservative Baptist Christian theology and perspective, and that unfortunately is unusual. Head in the clouds, feet on the ground, healthy tension, and that keeps you going.
That's really great. Thank you. Mark, I'm going to follow up on the storytelling aspect. Are there particular stories that Dr. Ellis has shared that resonate with you, or is there one particular story?
There are many, and we have a long history together, both me working in his administration and even before that. I was present the day the Board of Trustees elected him as president in 1994. We were also both present in Pyongyang, North Korea when we first met you.
That's right.
So that's one of those interesting stories that I won't go into right now. one of the stories that I've heard him tell, he told to the Board of Trustees one time, and I was present at that meeting and chagrined when I heard it. But I'll go ahead and share it. He mentioned in the book,
Date, you know.
the book ends, I know, but I'm old. I must be around that long.
We do have control of his mic.
Yeah, the president, and in the book we talk about many of the global travels that we both have experienced and engaged in for CBU and other activities. And reflecting on that one time, he told the Board of Trustees, because we traveled together so much, it turned out that we visited more romantic places with each other than with our own wives. So if you hadn't heard it from him before, you've heard it now. That's one of the stories that resonates with me both in a good and a bad way.
I think we'll leave that one there, okay?
Yeah.
Please do.
So just one more follow-up for you. Similar to the previous question about writing and communication, talk a little bit about how storytelling is so effective for important leadership.
Wow. Yes, everybody has a story, and everybody wants their story to be known. And being able to effectively communicate and tell the story. For example, each of these posters around here is a success story. And by pointing those out earlier, Dr. Ellis was telling lots of stories without saying a lot of words. But using those words selectively, telling those stories purposefully is the best way to engage people and to communicate ideas in a pictorial kind of a way, even without pictures. If you use the words colorfully, you can help to engage people's ideas and imaginations in ways that can communicate something far more effectively than by simply saying, I want to do this, or I want you to do that.
Yeah.
So telling the story of the 30 years presidency of Ronald Ellis is a great way to capture the history of what I call the golden age of California Baptist University. And in doing so, there are more stories being told than I could even tell you.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. So, Dr. Ellis, same question for you. From your perspective, how important is storytelling in effective leadership and communication?
Oh, tremendously. In fact, one of the things that I have probably used as a technique is to develop stories that illustrate a concept or a practice or something that I want people to inculcate. And the best way to do that is with the story. You know, we see this in the Bible, especially the red letters, over and over and over again. Jesus is asked a question and he answers with a story. He tells a parable. He gives that, and that is the way people understood. Probably didn't have a lot of people who could read and write and all of that. So by telling a story, made it very, very memorable. And I have tried to tell stories. It's good if it has a little humor with it. It's got a Southern accent, maybe it's even better, or not. But telling stories in a way that people get the concept and they remember it.
That's really great. Thank you. So, shifting gears just a little bit, in your preparation for coming to CBU, selling books door to door, thinking about becoming a university president, you obviously talk in the book about a lot of lessons that you learned. So what are one or two lessons you might want to share with the students to kind of encourage them as they think about that? You referenced some of that in the talk that you gave, but are there particular things that you want to encourage them with related to that aspect?
Yeah, I would say I would encourage the students to live every day to the fullest. Don't waste days. Get up and just go for it. Even if it's just having fun, just really have some fun. I don't mean dangerous, but really challenge yourself. don't just have goals that I'm just going to do this. One of the things I've always done is try to create pressure, to use that pressure in a good way to motivate me. And the story I tell there is many of us as a child, you might be shooting hoops in the backyard by yourself. So one of the ways to make it entertaining is you act like you're counting down to the end of the game. 3, 2, 1, you shoot. And then I often had to say, thank God we were ahead, But the idea is that you're down by 1, and you make a 2-pointer or whatever. And but you create that pressure to be able to establish goals, but have goals and really enjoy your life and get up and go at it every time and serve the Lord on the way. Really focus on how can you help people. That's probably the biggest thing. When you help people, you help yourself. And it just is the best thing to be doing.
Yeah, that's so helpful. So one more thing would like you to focus on. Near the beginning of the book, you talk about this opportunity to meet St. Peter.
Yeah.
And it's something that you've shared before, and I love hearing about it. I'd love for you just to talk about this concept and idea.
Yeah, this is one of those stories that I developed, I think, in my mid-20s. Southern Baptists, we're at our very best when we emphasize the Great Commission. But there's just a lot of things that we're, maybe not as great at. And what I was getting at, and it's a story I tell to illustrate being focused, and so it has several elements to it. The idea, if a student comes to me and wants to know about what, advice for living their life, one of the first things I tell them is something like this. I say, well, think about you're on your deathbed and you're drawing your last breath. As you review your life, what's going to put a little positive crease on the corner of your lip as you review what you did in your life? And that's how you should live your life from here forward. Don't worry about the past, but that's what you should have that goal as. Do those things that you want to see on that reel. The other thing is that I have this idea is that I die and I get to the pearly gates and I have 2 options on what is going to happen. And what I'm going to do between now and the time I die is probably going to determine that. And so here they are. The first one is the bad one, okay? It's B. The first one is I get to the pearly gates. St. Pete says, hey, Ron, you're in. You're in. Okay, wow. But I just have to ask you a few questions. And I said, sure, go ahead. He says, you remember back in the 70s when such and such was splitting the church and you did such and such? And I go, oh gosh, that's not my finest hour. And I don't feel good about it. He said, well, let's go to the 80s. And such was now the rage. And now I start, oh man, this is not good. And then he goes to the 90s and the next decade. By this time, I'm just a mess. I'm thinking, man, I spent my whole life, whatever was faddish at the moment, that's what I did. And he says, it's okay, Ron. It's okay. Come on in. And I just kind of slump into heaven, So that's one version. That's the B version. A version is this version. And this is the one I want to live. So when I love statistics, when I took that in school, and I love probability, the idea that there's confidence intervals, and we never can really know with 100% absolute. And that's what faith is, If you can know with 100% absolute, then you don't need faith because you know. So there's always this 0.0001 somewhere out there. And so I'm thinking, what am I, my mind runs in weird ways. What am I willing to be wrong about when I get to heaven? So here's the way this story plays out. I die. I'm at the pearly gates. St. Pete says, Ron, you're in. I just want to ask you one question. And I said, sure. He says, since you were about 25, you spent your entire life focused on building a university committed to the Great Commission. Really? And I'm like, yeah? Like, Is that a bad thing? I'm willing to be wrong on that, is my point. Does that make sense? I know it's kind of weird, but I'm willing to be wrong on that because I'm going to go 100% the rest of my life to do that. And that's because I don't want to be that first guy, because that helps me when there's all these distractions that come up. We're not getting involved with that. No, my default is when I get faced with these issues, people want to comment. Let me tell you about Matthew 28, 19 and 20, my friend. How about we talk about that? How about we focus on the purpose that God has created us for? And usually those things end up going away and being replaced by something else, something else, something else. That's not the way I want to spend my life. So that's that story. But it's a story that illustrates the way I processed that situation, watching the church over and over and over again fall into a trap of focusing on today instead of eternity.
Yeah, thank you for expanding on that and for the reminder that all of us really need to be thinking about that conceptual conversation with St. Peter and how it should influence the way that we live. So just one last thing I think that's important. Many of you know, but most of you may not know, the proceeds from this book actually go to a scholarship fund. So I'm going to ask Dr. Ellis just to speak about that fund. Some of you have purchased the book. It'd be good for you to know where those dollars are going. Maybe you haven't purchased the book, but I just want to encourage you to think about it. So if you speak to where those dollars are going.
Yeah, Jane and I, when we came here nearly 31 years ago, set up a scholarship fund for students. And we recently changed the direction of it because of the situation with the Lausanne movement, where the Lausanne movement was founded by Billy Graham in 1971. And they just had their 4th Congress, and it was in Seoul, Korea. Chuck and I and about 8 or 10 people from CBU were there. And one of the special things that happened was we were able to meet with something like 11 either current students or former students that we have paid their tuition for. And here's what several years ago, and Matthew Dearman, I don't know if he's here, but he heads this up. The Lausanne movement started a thing where they identify evangelical emerging leaders in like majority world countries. So these are between the ages of 25 and 39, and in their denomination or whatever, or their Christian organization, they have been identified as an emerging leader. Many of them have bachelor's degrees, but they don't have the means to get a master's or a doctorate. And I thought, this is right up my alley. I love the global impact of this, and these people never have to even know who I am. So each year, Matthew asks us, how many do you think we can fund? And I look and see how much money I can put together, and we give him a number. And he sends that to Chuck and me, and then we look at it and determine, can we do this? And if you're in a master's program, it's 2 years. And if you're in a doctoral program, it's 3 years. And so they have different rates and all that. We pay all the tuition. They're responsible for fees and their books. And usually their sponsoring entity or whatever pays for that. And we have, I think, 12 people in the program now, about half and half doctoral. And we just did masters at first. And then once some of them completed, they say, could we get a doctorate? And we thought about it, and I did the math and said, sure, we can do a few. And so that has been great. As we gathered with them over there, and I'm sure all of them were sponsored by somebody. If you want to get a lump in your throat, have somebody you don't know like that, who is an emerging leader, very talented, come up to you and tell you how grateful they are. Wow. Makes me feel like Schindler's List. A watch, a ring. So I'm really motivated. So our scholarship is dedicated to those people.
Thank you for sharing that. So, Mark, thanks so much for being here. Your input in the book, your efforts, the time that you spent with Dr. Ellis is just so important. Thanks to both of you for the conversation. We appreciate it very much. So let's give them a round of applause, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ellis, Dr. Wyatt, Dr. Sands. In just a moment, I will close us out with a benediction. And we just want to thank you again for being with us today and being part of this event. We also want to encourage you to stay for the reception outside. We have, if you haven't had a chance, it's been mentioned a number of times this evening, do take a look at what all of our alum have accomplished by taking some time to look at these different Career Center showcases. We also have from the Career Center the photo booth that is frequently used to help students become get a more professional headshot, or if you just want a mugshot, you can take that over there as well. And if you're a student who needs their ID scanned, we have those scanners available at the door. So please see one of our student workers there when you leave. I believe it's right to say that we have all been blessed tonight. So let's go ahead and thank God in prayer. Father in heaven, you have blessed each of us with unique gifts, with special talents, not for our own glory, but for yours, and to give us the opportunity to help others. And so for that, we give you thanks. Help us to use our gifts to grow the kingdom and to build the city of God here on earth. May we use our blessings, like education, to make a positive impact wherever we are. May we work for the good of others in the calling of your Spirit. Wherever he calls, wherever he leads, may we answer. And may we tell our stories again and again, the stories of your faithfulness, so that people may learn in us the redemptive power of Jesus Christ. In whose name we pray. Amen.